All the time for talking is done, baby. We got week 1 of the college football season here, and we have our first Prediction Tuesday of the year. If you are just now finding this show and you're a college football sicko, welcome home. This is us essentially wrapping our arms around you, the listener, whether you're on podcast or the viewer if you're watching live on YouTube, and this is your place for college football year-round. We talk about college football and only college football. No hot takes, no preservatives, no additives, no clickbait, no nothing just to try and get you to tune in. Like, this is a place where we honor, respect, and love this sport with every fiber of our being. We're glad to have y'all here, baby. It is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, the last one on the face of the planet. What is Prediction Tuesday? It is exactly what it sounds like, baby. We're calling our shot for all the big matchups for week 1. And I'll tell you what, man, you look at this buffet of games we have ahead of us, man. There's some good ones now. You got Georgia and Clemson in Atlanta. You got Florida and Miami, which I would go ahead and just tab as the main event when it comes to impact and intrigue. Napier and Cristobal, year 3 coaches going at it in the Sunshine State, recruiting, bragging rights, and a lot more on the line. A&M, Notre Dame, College Game Day is going to be there. We'll give you our winner in that one. Also going to give you our winner in what I have been calling now for a while, the best movie in Las Vegas since The Hangover. You got LSU and USC. You got Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly, two that were actually in a lot of ways kind of linked together in terms of their path to their now destinations at where they're coaching. There was a thought at one point like, hey, is Lincoln Riley going to be the guy at LSU? And a little switcheroo goes to USC, and then out of nowhere, Brian Kelly goes to LSU. The timeline is fuzzy, but at the end of the day, we're going to figure out who's got the juice in 2024 because USC's in a new conference. LSU's trying to do a lot more than win double-digit games. Brian Kelly has made that extremely clear. We'll give you our winner in that one. And then a little bonus here at the end, man. We're going to circle back to the weekend. There's a very intriguing game happening over on Fox in the noon slot. You got Penn State going to Morgantown, West Virginia, a little country roads action. Penn State, single-digit point favorite, going on the road. I mean, we'll see. We'll give you our pick in that one in just a matter of moments. Again, if you're new, subscribe to the channel, baby. It's college football season. There's no more time to mess around. No more time to be watching other sports and other content. Like, we are in college football mode right now. A lot of y'all locked arms with us and walked through the winter part of the year, walked through the spring. We got a little appetizer that was spring football that got us all the way to the doorstep of week 1, but we're here now. We're here. If you haven't yet subscribed, hey, we'd love to have you here. Again, this is a college football sicko community. So if you're watching on YouTube, shouts to you. We love you. Also, if you're listening on podcast, shouts to you. Subscribe to the podcast feed. If you're more of a podcast person, you type in the hard count with J.D. Pickell, and we'll be right there waiting for you. So before we get to our predictions, I want us to take accountability for the weekend that was. This is something we're going to do here going forward on every single Tuesday live show as long as y'all like it. A lot of times you can spout off a take during the week before and then you kind of just forget about it and your audience is like, hey, wait, didn't you say something last week that you were just straight up wrong about? We're going to do this segment that I call hits and misses from last week. Not going to take too long, but I just want us to unpack it together because, y'all, we missed badly on Georgia Tech. Okay, I sat here and said this game screams backdoor cover to me with Florida State. I said I think Florida State's going to control the line of scrimmage. That was not the case. To quote Brent Key at the end of that football game, run the ball. And they did exactly that. Ran for darn near 200 yards on what a lot of people thought, myself and Pete Thamel included, one of the best defensive lines in college football. So, I mean, Georgia Tech, I apologize. I wasn't familiar with your game. So in the same way we missed about Georgia Tech, we missed on Florida State. I just told you, that defensive line, I did not understand what they were going to look like against that front of Georgia Tech. They ran the football downhill. Now, it doesn't still mean that's not a really talented outfit at Florida State. But it does mean that they're 0-1 in conference play. They are 0-1 on the season. And right now, they are, in a lot of ways, I think, scrambling to figure out exactly who they are on the defensive side of the football. Now, one of the things that we hit on last week was the formula for Florida State offensively was exactly what we thought it would be. Because DJU caught a lot of flack, and there's that halftime graphic going around where he's averaging like negative yards in terms of attempts through the air. And we're sitting here saying, like, we all knew this was going to be the strategy for DJU. One of the reasons why you like DJU at Florida State is because he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to be the catalyst for your offense. But then the issue was you didn't have the running game that you expected to have. You didn't play great defense like you expected to at Florida State. And then what happened was you start looking at the quarterback and say, hey, make something happen. And we're sitting here saying that the whole approach with DJU was that he wasn't supposed to be the guy to make something happen. He wasn't supposed to be the guy to put you on his back and carry you to the promised land. So I think going forward now, what we can learn from this, from these hits and misses, is for Florida State now, they have to tinker with that formula. I'm not saying you got to just totally start from scratch and change the whole way you approach things offensively, but I do think there needs to be maybe some reimagination of what you ask of DJU. I thought going into the season they would be a team that was more like 57% run. Maybe you have to be a little bit more balanced. Okay? Now, I also think what we can learn from this is Georgia Tech may very well be a player in the ACC. Not calling my shot for them to win the conference, but are they going to play a more talented defensive line on paper in the conference? My opinion is no. Now, we'll see if that opinion changes after we get a little bit more data on the rest of college football, but they got to go to Syracuse, to Louisville, to Va Tech, right after they play Notre Dame, mind you, so that'll be kind of interesting. Still play Miami, still play NC State. Both of those games will be at home. But again, if Georgia Tech is going to run the football like that and control the line of scrimmage like that, they're going to have a chance. Haynes King's got to play mistake-free football, but they're going to have a chance in just about every game they play in. So we missed some. We hit on some from week 0, but we rounded into to mid-season form, and we still got week 1 on the docket here. So let's get to that now. Let's get to the actual games that are about to happen, man. Golly, this fires me up so much. All right, let's take a moment now. We're about to jump into the new college football season, a new era of college football, right? 12-team playoff, new conferences, new SEC, new Big 10, new Big 12. Let's have an absolute year. New ACC as well. Let's get to this. Georgia, Clemson, noon Eastern, ABC, Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Georgia favored by 13.5. I want to start with what this means for Georgia. For Georgia, man, this is a chance to make a point to the rest of college football. Because how many times have we sat here throughout the course of this offseason and told you, man, Georgia, they're the best team in America. They have the best roster in college football. That's great to talk about all the way up until it's time to actually play football games. You can say whatever you want about a football team until they actually have to make it matter, make it count. And in a game like this, as much as we talk about Georgia, how talented they are, they're not playing some G5 school. Clemson isn't just stocked with 3-star talent. Clemson's got some real deal dudes now that can make something happen if Georgia does not bring their A game to the table. So if Georgia goes in there and covers that number, which we'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to our pick in this game, this is not some sort of situation where you just say, oh yeah, Georgia, that's a nice win. No, that's a really good Clemson football team from a roster talent level. Do they put it together? Remains to be seen. Because as much as the conversation around Georgia is their chance to make a point, make a statement, hey, we are that big dog in the sport, for Clemson, think about what we would say about Dabo Swinney and co. if they beat Georgia. Just think about this, because right now we're talking about how he's not taking callers, and Tyler from Spartanburg, took the caller-driven portion off of his radio show and whatnot, and he's kind of been the butt of a lot of jokes. He's been the example you point to as to why you need to use the transfer portal. Talking about Clemson and their downward spiral since college football has evolved into what it is right now in the modern era with NIL and the portal. If they beat Georgia, you completely hit the reset on your perception of Dabo Swinney and what he's done at Clemson. If they beat Georgia, you're saying, okay, Clemson's going to be a force now. Forget the ACC. I'm talking about the college football playoff, because if Clemson beats Georgia, who else on their schedule is better from a roster talent perspective? For my money, nobody. And that's not throwing shade at anybody else they have on the schedule. That's just the facts. Okay? So when it comes to breaking down this game, we got to start in the trenches, man. Got to start in the trenches. And the question I'm asking more specifically in the trenches is, when Georgia has the football, can Clemson hold up to what I believe is going to be the potential strength of Georgia's offense? The running back room, you got some question marks. To be honest, I don't know that it matters all that much for me in terms of picking this game, who they have toting the mail for them. They have 4 of 5 starters back on the offensive line. And what we said in our early look at this game, if Georgia's able to run the football, control the line of scrimmage, and just squeeze the life out of the game, 1, Georgia's probably covering that number. 2, it opens up the rest of the menu. It's like when your local finance bro goes to dinner on the company card. Everything is on the table for him, all right? He can order whatever he wants. That's Georgia's offense. So for Clemson, Peter Woods, baby, legacy game. True sophomore. You can make an argument this is the biggest spot of his career. Need him to anchor down that defense. It's a young front seven. Him and Barrett Carter will have to bring their A game and then some to be able to force Georgia into some more obvious passing situations. Just force them into third and passing, count that as a dub. Just give your defense a chance. Because, again, if you can't do that, Carson Beck, man, he's back there, playing darts. Just that's my dart sound effect for those of y'all listening on podcast. He will have a field day. Because if you have to add in extra numbers to the box, it will be a very, very long day, and Georgia will score a whole lot of points. So in a spot like this, where Georgia is favored by just about 2 touchdowns, it doesn't take a whole lot of novel analysis to tell you, oh, yeah, Georgia's going to win the football game. Like, that's the easy take to have here. Let's explore what it would look like if Clemson were to win this game. What would it take? We said this, again, in our early looks. It's another reason to subscribe to the channel because we give you a lot of content around these matchups. In our early look at this game, Clemson winning would not be a straight-up matchup kind of football game. Like, what I mean by that is, as talented as Clemson is, Georgia has been stocking the cupboard with 5-star talent since Kirby Smart got there, more or less. And so, for Clemson, you can't just play straight up our guy versus your guy. So offensively, if they want to generate some offense, if they want to generate some points, it's going to take a little bit of sleight of hand, a little bit of creativity, if you will. That's where Garrett Riley comes into play here. Now, a lot of folks can be very quick to point to the TCU-Georgia game where Georgia drugged them in the national championship. Garrett Riley was the OC at TCU. It is what it is. New game. I think Clemson has a little more juice at the wide receiver position this year than they've had in the past. Antonio Williams is a name that you know if you're a Clemson fan. Tyler Brown stepped up in a big way last year. But there's 2 receivers that are freshmen that we'll see what the impact they have on this game is, but the potential for them to contribute is there. Bryant Wesco had a nice spring game for Clemson, 4-star cat. TJ Moore was a 5-star for us here at On 3, and both bring, I believe, the athleticism and the wide receiver 1 traits that Clemson has been lacking. Like, Clemson has not had a 1,000-yard wide receiver since 2020 on the season, okay? So it's going to take something like that for them to win a football game like this. So going back to Garrett Riley, do you throw him the keys? We had Jesse Simonton on the show, I want to say it was around 2-ish weeks ago, and he put it so perfectly. Clemson's offense has been the putt-putt version of what Garrett Riley is able to do. Like, yeah, he's got his name at the OC spot on your program when you break it open on game day, but, like, it wasn't really Garrett Riley's offense. There's not really that creativity and the window dressing and the aggression there that you've come to expect from him. I think the ingredients and the strategy is there for Clemson to have success. Again, if and only if they turn it over to Garrett Riley, and if and only if Cade Klubnik is able to put away what he hasn't done successfully over the course of his last couple of years at Clemson. Because as much as I like Cade Klubnik, I believe his stats against Power 4 competition last season was like 12 touchdowns to 8 picks. That's not going to cut it. Not going to cut it. Now, one thing I would say, his ability to use his legs could end up being a major X factor in this game. Again, Garrett Riley, if you know what he's done as a coordinator, he likes to incorporate some quarterback run game. That's kind of the overall just like question variable that could give a defense some issues. So we'll see how much they incorporate that there. But Cade Klubnik, man, cannot turn the football over. Cannot turn the football over. If you want to win this game, got to be efficient, got to be a threat with your legs, and cannot throw the football to Georgia. So those are kind of the key matchups to watch. Here are just some overall takes on what this game is going to look like. I think Georgia, with how they're built offensively and what they have just from top to bottom on this roster, they have the ability to be so multiple in any game, especially in this one. Like, if you are able to score points offensively, if you're Clemson, you're able to kind of generate some of that juice we talked about. They're firing on all cylinders. Carson Beck just kind of warms up the arm. All right, we're good to go. They can play a shootout style of game with you. If Clemson decides they want to try and hold the ball and keep Carson Beck off the field, one, I think the Georgia front seven is more than good enough to handle that. Two, Georgia is also able to offensively, with this front seven, I believe, good enough to control the game themselves. So any way you slice it, I think Georgia, with how multiple they are, is at a major advantage here. Roster talent, yes, but in the trenches especially, that's a major differentiating factor for me. If Clemson were to win this football game, it would take something from them offensively we haven't seen in a minute. Like, it would be, I think, very surprising if Clemson were to go out there and score in the high 20s. And that's not throwing shade at Clemson. That's just the reality here. It would take something from them against this elite defense that we have not seen just yet. This game, to me, just screams 2022 Oregon and Georgia. Georgia returning quarterback. Clemson has some potential on that roster, but this is one that I think we see Georgia flex their muscle a bit. I think we see them take care of business. I have Georgia winning. I have Georgia covering. Now, one more thing I would say to the Clemson fans watching. Remember that game where Georgia, again, they drug Oregon. It was Dan Lanning's first game. It was Bo Nix's first game as a Duck. That team still went on to win, I believe, if not double-digit games, right around double-digit games. So don't write off Clemson just because they get beat by Georgia. We said that before. We'll say that again. We'll say that after if that ends up being the case. So, again, we have Georgia winning this football game, and we have them doing it in convincing fashion. So if you are trying to win some money, would encourage you to take the dogs with the points. So very excited to tell you all this before we get to our next prediction here. The Hard Count is partnering with Prize Picks all season long. We did some of this last year. We're up in the ante and doing even more so this year. A big reason why, because y'all were tremendous in supporting us and supporting Prize Picks last season. So thank you for that. For those of y'all that have no idea what I'm talking about, Prize Picks. Daily fantasy, super simple, and just quite frankly, a blast to play. Very comprehensive. The way that it works, you pick the projections on 2 or more players, and you pick more or less on that projection, put it together in a lineup, you have a chance to win easy money right away. I shouldn't say easy. You have a chance to win money and have easy withdrawal if you're able to pick the right lineups. We'll be giving you our picks, too, on this show, so make sure you're locked in. Worth noting, too, Prize Picks right now, essentially giving away a square. I say essentially. Jalen Milroe, his number right now over at Prize Picks, doing a special, half a passing yard. Half a passing yard. That's going to hit. So go ahead and play that as a part of your lineup. Go to prizepicks.com to get started. Use code HARDCOUNT to receive a guaranteed $50 in promo funds when you play $5 in lineups. Again, prizepicks.com, code HARDCOUNT, receive a guaranteed $50 in promo funds once you play $5 in lineups. Again, if you want to fade us on this show, I would encourage you to do that early. Just full transparency. It takes us a second to get rolling. But as we get going over on the socials at JD Pickell, Instagram and Twitter, we'll be giving you our plays on a weekly basis, and we'll have a good time. So shouts to Prize Picks, helping us to just absolutely squeeze all of the juice out of every single college football Saturday. And also beyond Saturday, honestly. We got some other games during the week, which will be a blast. All right, here's the main event, if you're asking me. Florida, Miami, in the Swamp, 3:30 Eastern, ABC. This is, to me, the most important, most impactful game, not just for both sides of this game, but for the entire Week 1 slate. All right, Miami favored by 2.5 as they go into the Swamp. And this is just the beauty of college football, man, right? We got a rivalry game. Week 1. Usually you got to wait till after Thanksgiving to get one of these. We got it in Week 1. Just absolutely beautiful. Hallelujah. We'll break it down right now. First things first, though, if you're watching live, make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. Gators fans, Canes fans, college football sickos, this is your spot where we talk college football, nothing but college football all year long. It is, again, a sicko community when it comes to what we talk about and care about when it comes to college football. There is no game too small. There is no detail too small, and we want y'all a part of this. So, again, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a minute of what we have going on here on this show, The Hard Count, on this platform, the On3 YouTube channel. So we appreciate you for that. If you're Florida, this game could not have come soon enough. Like, think about just the off-season noise they've had to endure. Some of it from folks close to the program, some of it folks like me sitting behind a mic, talking about Florida and how hard their schedule is and their over-under win total. Like, this is the part for Florida now where you have a chance to silence all of the noise Because everyone and their mama has had an opinion on Billy Napier, on the Gators, on Graham Mertz. And guess what? When you kick it off in the swamp, that matters 0%. 0%. When you actually line up, play 11-11 football, the schedule goes out the window, the talking points go out the window, and it is mano-a-mano. Who is the better team on that Saturday? Also, just so we're on the same page, this is a chance now for Florida to, I think, create some really positive inertia, create some confidence. And you look at their November schedule, which we'll do at some point later down the line, but you just look at who they have at the end of this season. If you win this game, you look at that totally differently. All right? So, massive opportunity for Florida. Silence all the noise. They have been starving for this game. Starving for it. They're going to get it here on Saturday. For Miami, this is not by any stretch of the imagination, a less impactful matchup for them. Mario Cristobal, much like Billy Napier, going into a third year. The third year for us here on this show, we call it a show-me year. And Mario Cristobal now has built to have a good season this year, to put it simply. Like the first year, kind of trying to get your footing and get your roster right. Second year, you make some progress. Go from 5-7 to 7-5. And then this year, this is where you pop. Okay? And the big part of why you believe you can pop, because you got a quarterback in Cam Ward. He's here for a good time, not a long time, y'all. Like this is your one-season window to strike while the iron is hot. If you are going to be who you believe you are, this is one of those games that you punch in and get a dub for. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But if they're able to win this game, it would start their season off with a bang. This would be like the starting gun, if you will, to what they expect to accomplish in 2024. So when it comes to matchups in this game, like one of my big questions is how much do you ask of Graham Mertz if you're Florida against this Miami defense? And that's much more a question to me around how much you can create balance if you're Florida, and not so much of is Graham Mertz capable in this game. Because I think for Florida now, like we don't know exactly what that running back room is going to look like in terms of who's available just yet. I'm sure more information will come out throughout the week. Maybe it'll come out at game time. I don't know. The question is, can you get a push offensively if you're Florida? Can you be multiple offensively? Because if you can, much like we talk about with a lot of these breakdowns, that's going to open up a lot of whatever else you want on this offense. And so I think the guy to really circle here is Trey Wilson. If you follow me on social media, I put out a short about this last night on Instagram and on Twitter. I think he is the key to this offense. He's the key to this offense. However, he gets a lot more space to work with if that outside linebacker has to fold down a little bit more to help play the run. Okay, if they're able to get something going. If you're able to set up, 3rd and 4, a lot more of the playbook is open as opposed to 3rd and 8. So getting a push up front against this Miami front is going to be, I think, a more difficult task than it would have been a few months ago. Simeon Barrow now up front for them. Tyler Barron up front for them. Ruben Bain up front. This is a real deal, I believe. Mario Cristobal kind of front seven. How does that look on the road in this spot with the entire swamp at the back of the Florida offense? Remains to be seen. But getting a push for Florida, again, creates a lot of what you would ask Graham Mertz to then do. All right? So in that same way, we talk about the swamp. That's a major variable in this game for obvious reasons. I think it is one of the most, if not the most difficult place to play in all of college football. How much is Cam Ward impacted by the swamp? Because Cam Ward, now we've heard a lot about what he brings to the table physically, and that's the obvious part. Like what he did at Washington State now, we can all go YouTube Cam Ward highlights and see him just absolutely throwing missiles around the field. 7.7 yards an attempt. We can go and see that with our own eyes. However, in this game, though, being in the swamp, there's a little bit of that it factor you have to have. And the other part of this, too, you don't get Florida when you get them in October and you've had a few games to kind of get settled in. Like, this is your first start at Miami. First start with a lot of new teammates. How do you respond just emotionally, competitively, internally? Sort of an unquantifiable to a degree. But if he goes out there and has zero fear and has zero flinch in him, as your quarterback goes, I promise you that's how the rest of your team goes. If Cam Ward walks out there and he's not worried about a thing and he's just out there dealing and he's balling, like that raises everyone else's confidence level to a whole new tier, if you will. And that's what it would take to beat a team like Florida, I believe, in the swamp. Because if he goes out there and it's looking like it's his first start. It looks like the first day of school jitters, if you will. It's going to make for some turnovers. Tell you what, too, the Swamp, they're going to smell blood in the water. They're going to start to frenzy. It's going to be a bad deal. Okay, you do not want that to be the case if you're Miami. You cannot have a slow start. We've said that many times. I think that's 1,000% still true as we make this prediction on this game. A slow start will only compound the efficacy of what the Swamp is. Efficacy, a new word to the show, but basically it means how impactful it is. So, to help Cam Ward out, much like we talked about the push for Florida, there's got to be a push for Miami. And they went out and got themselves a back in the transfer portal, who I think a lot of Miami fans know about, but I'm not sure the rest of college football knows about quite as much because he played at Oregon State. But Damian Martinez, man, he runs behind his pads. He gets north and south. He was a 2,000-yard back in his 2 years at Oregon State. He is going to carry the mail for them. He's going to set the tone for them offensively. You want to settle in your starting quarterback? You want to give him a chance to kind of get his bearings and have a simplistic picture to look at? Run the ball for 4 yards a carry. That'll clear everything up. All right? Going back to what I said about Trey Wilson, he might be the most important player in this game. Like, Trey Wilson is going to, I believe, have right around, if not north of double-digit touches, whether it be jet sweep, whether it be quick game, whether it be pushing the ball downfield. And him having success early now, mind you, not in the third quarter, not in the fourth quarter, early in this game, will also, I think, free up Graham Mertz to spread the football around, and it'll make Miami a little bit more concerned about where number 3 is at every given snap. The portal pieces for Miami are something that, just full transparency, concern me a little bit. Not from the talent perspective, but when you transfer into a new place, you're still trying to get on the same page. You have to, that's human nature to still have some sort of acclimation period your first game. You don't play Yale the first game. You play Florida at their place. So it's going to take a second to get on the same page. Double-digit portal pieces added for Miami. That concerns me, like I just mentioned. So I think the path for Miami to win this game, if it were to happen, or a path that I could see for Miami to win this game. We said the same thing about Anthony Richardson a couple of years ago when Utah came to Florida. It's the same way I feel about Cam Ward with how much talent he has. There's a real possibility he is just him on this day. There's a real possibility that Florida has momentum and the Swamp's on fire and the offense for Florida's firing on all cylinders, and Cam Ward just shrugs it off, goes for 3 touchdowns, runs for 1 more, takes care of the football, and that's kind of all she wrote. Even if every other statistic from a time of possession to a yards rushing favors Florida, Cam Ward, I believe, is talented enough to overcome all of that. That is very, very possible. So when it comes to my pick in this game, man, if this game was played on Saturn, I would pick Miami. If this game was played in Atlanta, Georgia, I'd pick Miami. If this game was played anywhere but Gainesville, Florida, I would pick Miami. However, the game is played in the Swamp. The game is played in Gainesville. And I think all of the external noise that Florida's had to deal with to this point in the season, to get to this point, to start the season, I think they've just sort of been filing that away, going to use it as fuel, going to use it as motivation. And I think that Florida finds a way to scratch and claw and fight. Maybe it's a turnover late. Maybe it's a special teams play. Don't know, but I think Florida, behind Trey Wilson and Graham Mertz, find a way to get it done. Final score, Florida 29, Miami 26. Hear me clearly, though, if you're a Miami fan. I said this probably a couple of months ago. Miami, to me, is a playoff team. Miami, even losing this game, I believe, is still a playoff team, and I still think they're your ACC champ. They get a bye in the college football playoff. That's not me trying to butter you up. That's just me trying to paint the picture of how I think this game is going to look and how bizarre it is and what could happen in the Swamp. So Florida, again, I think wins. So by that nature, we have them covering the plus 2.5. It's going to be a good one, though. Cannot wait for that one. Should be a lot of fun. And, again, the most impactful game, in my mind, for both sides heading into this season. Especially for Florida, man. For Miami, again, I think they're okay to recover and kind of catch themselves and be okay. But, in terms of just overall just narrative around Billy Napier, it's going to do a lot. Going to do a lot. Hey, if you're watching live, got a lot of y'all tuned in, and we appreciate you for that. There's a subscribe button below the picture. go ahead and just hit that for us so we make sure you're dialed in for everything that we're doing here this season as we jump into the glorious thing that is the new era of college football. Thank you for that. All right, College Game Day coming to Yo City, College Station. This will be a blast, man. Texas A&M -2.5 against Notre Dame. 7:30 Eastern, ABC, Kyle Field. Y'all, that place will be on fire. For those of y'all that have watched this show for the better part of the last year and a half, you've heard me say this a few times. Like, I worked in College Station for a cup of coffee, doing local news there. That entire city, that entire community lives and dies with Texas A&M football. So Kyle Field will be packed out. The atmosphere will be nothing short of electric, especially because of what's going on in College Station now. Jimbo Fisher is out. Mike Elko is in. The Elko era starts here in this game. And we've said this many times for Texas A&M. This is not some, like, rebuild for A&M. Because sometimes we bring in a new coach, and it's like, hey, we got to tear it down to the studs. We got to figure this thing out again and start from scratch. That's not A&M. How many times have you heard someone sit behind a microphone and say, yeah, A&M's really talented. Look at how they've recruited. That's the obvious part. It's not rebuild when it comes to a roster. It's a reboot when it comes to approach, when it comes to culture, when it comes to strategy, all those things. All the things that help you actually maximize the roster, maximize the input you've had there for the better part of the last few years. Winning a game like this against a team that a lot of folks are picking right now to make the college football playoff to start the season, you want to start the Elko era off with a bang? You get a big win at home with the eyes of the country upon you to do that. For Notre Dame, like we said, a lot of folks picking them to be in the college football playoff. Yours truly, I have them in the college football playoff. But if you are who you believe you're going to be, you win this game. You win this game. Because as much as you talk about A&M and what they have on that roster, still a year one coach, new coordinators. Notre Dame, you're going into year 3 of the Marcus Freeman era. You got a new quarterback, but you got him through the portal, and you got him as a guy who the NFL draft absolutely loves in Riley Leonard. You brought in a new coordinator yourself, but like you got the coordinator who is not, one, unfamiliar with South Bend and how Notre Dame operates. 2, he led the most potent offense in college football last year at LSU. So the way that you look at this, like there's a lot there for Notre Dame to where really just on paper they should be ahead of where A&M is right now. Now, does that matter in this game? When it comes to our prediction, remains to be seen. Everyone has been talking this point to death, and I think it's valid, but I think we're looking at it the wrong way. Notre Dame will be without who would have been their starting tackle in Jagusaw. Nick Scorton transfers in from Purdue to Texas A&M to wreak havoc off the edge. He led the Big Ten in sacks last year. That's not by accident, especially when you're playing at a place like Purdue. You're getting a lot of attention. The bottom line here is that's a matchup you circle in red ink, highlight it. If you're a fan, you probably take whatever the props are on a Nick Scorton, right? I think Mike Denbrock understands that. I think he understands that's a spot where he has to give some extra attention for his offense. I'm not so much interested as to who wins that matchup between Nick Scorton and the Notre Dame young offensive line or that defensive line for A&M and the Notre Dame offensive line. That's going to factor into some respect. Obviously, my question is, how does Mike Denbrock scheme around that? How does he find a way to make up for what just quite frankly should be a talent gap that favors Texas A&M? That's what I'm really curious about. Because when we watch Mike Denbrock's offenses, go back to what he did at LSU, he runs what I would call like the modern triple option. Not the same as an RPO. It is an RPO to some respects, but he's going to consistently get Riley Leonard the opportunity to give the football based on what the defensive end does. And in some cases, if they give him the look to pull the football, he will be on the perimeter with more than likely Mitchell Evans, the stud tight end for Notre Dame, as an option to throw the football to in the flat, or he'll have a chance to just knife up field, get yardage, and probably have a first down for Notre Dame. How does Texas A&M combat that? And when they do combat that, how successful are they at it? Because at the end of the day, too, Riley Leonard and his just physical attributes, he is, I believe, skilled enough if he's able to be consistent throwing the football downfield we know what he can do with his legs. Like he can give he can give Notre Dame a more than puncher's chance in this game, even though they're 2.5-point dogs. You can give A&M fits schematically because you might have it drawn up correctly, but you still got to make a tackle in the open field against a really talented athlete in Riley Leonard. Like that's just something you're going to have to account for at some point in time. There's probably going to be a battle we see many a time, but who is it filling against Riley Leonard? Is it Torian York? Is it one of the safeties trying to roll down and make a tackle on Leonard? Like I don't know what that looks like, but that battle to me will have a massive, massive impact on the game. Whether it's in the red zone, whether it's something that they just use a lot in second and short, third and short, and they pick up a big first down, like that is the spot to me to where if you're A&M, if you take that away, you force, I think, Notre Dame to play you in a lot more of an honest sense. And in that way, I think you feel better about what you have on the defensive front for Texas A&M. Because last year, they lost some guys now, don't get it twisted, but they are still, I believe, one of the most talented defensive fronts in the SEC, if not all of college football. Okay, so if you can make it a game where they have to play you in the box and you're not able to have so much success in the perimeter for Notre Dame, that's advantage A&M. That's a matchup we have to watch all game long. Now, we talked a lot about Riley Leonard. He's not the only quarterback in this game now. You got Connor Wegman, who is, you're hoping and praying, able to stay healthy for Texas A&M, a guy who's flashed multiple times for the Aggies when he has been healthy, 5-star cat in his own right. This will be the biggest spot in his college career. Now, the benefit for him is it's at home, but this will be the biggest game that he has ever played in as a college quarterback. So, yes, what you get from him is going to be a question we have to unpack together, but I'm looking at the A&M offense, and I'm like, okay, how much can you help him? More specifically, how much can you run the football to settle him into the game? Ruben Owens, done for the year. Your heart breaks for that guy. You definitely would have liked to have him in this game. Le'Veon Moss, going to be a massive, massive part of what they do getting downhill, running the football, as well as Daniels. So those two running backs, I think the 1-2 punch, if you're able to set him up for some 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2, just situations where Notre Dame can't just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback in the biggest spot of his life, that's advantage A&M. So I think the number to look at here, can A&M average yards per carry 3.5 to 4 yards? That's asking a lot because I really like the Notre Dame defense. We'll talk about them more in a second, but that's going to be huge. Because what that would do is, again, gives you some balance offensively, kind of puts the Notre Dame defense in a little more of a position where they probably have to play a lot more honest coverage on the back end. And then to go with that now, talking about supporting Connor Wegman, like if you're a receiver for A&M, go win, man. Go freaking win. Like if you're a guy that wants to increase your NFL draft stock, this is the game for you. Because you got Benjamin Morrison, who is right up there with Will Johnson, I believe is one of the best cornerbacks in the whole freaking sport. You got Xavier Watts, who is up there, I believe, with Caleb Downs as one of the best safeties in the sport. Like you want to go make yourself some money in the NFL, in a more instant sense, you want to give yourself a chance to win this football game, go win against those DBs. Because if you run the football and you get man coverage, Connor Wegman, I think, is going to give you a chance to go make some plays downfield. Has to happen in this game. Has to happen in this game. Have to find a way to separate and go win against a really good secondary. So in this game now, we talked about Trey Wilson for the Florida-Miami game and how explosive he is and how much they'll force feed him the football in multiple ways. To me, a name that everyone is going to know after week 1 of the college football season is Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. They're going to throw it to him. They're going to get him the ball in space. And the reason why I feel that way is whenever you go back and watch the Mike Denbrock offenses, what do? Spread you out, yes. Have a pretty balanced attack overall for the most part, yes. Great yards per carry numbers, yes. More specifically, they maximize their playmakers. And this Notre Dame offense has a lot of them. Like I haven't even talked about Chris Mitchell and what he brings to the table. Speedy outside receiver for them that they got from the G5 level. Jaden Greathouse, also a receiver for them that's going into his sophomore year that I think will have a massive impact. But Jeremiah Love, I think, is just the Swiss Army knife to where I don't know who you feel good about matching up with him. If you get him out in space, like I don't know who's bringing him down. So I don't know if it'll be a thing where he gets like 20-plus carries, but I do think it's a thing where you get him somewhere in the range of 15-plus touches, whether that's, again, throwing the football to him or handing it off to them. I think the defense for Notre Dame is why I feel confident in them going into College Station, because we talk about like tough environments, talked about the swamp. We'll talk more about some other places throughout the duration of this show. Notre Dame has a very adult defense. Like 7 of their 11 starters are not seniors, not juniors, grad students. What does that mean? It means they're very comfortable playing college football. Again, sounds simplistic, but it means that they are not going to be in a situation here when they go to Kyle Field and their heart rate shoots through the roof and they lose their bearings and they miss a bunch of assignments. Like, no, they're going to, I believe, have some acclimation, of course, in that first quarter playing in a raucous environment and playing college football again in a new season. But, like, for the most part now, they're going to be the steady hand. Jordan Botelho is a guy you've been waiting on for a while if you're a Notre Dame fan to really pop. He's like they call it the Viper, but he's essentially like a defensive end edge kind of player for Notre Dame. Watch him this game. I think he'll have a massive effort in getting pressure to Connor Wegman and helping them kind of try and push them into those third and passing situations that we tried to talk about A&M staying out of. That's massive. The experience and maturity of the Notre Dame defense, I think, ultimately will be the difference in this game. So I think it's back and forth. I think if you are a Texas A&M fan, you leave this game saying, okay, we're headed the right direction with Mike Elko. Okay, I see a real identity now offensively with Connor Wegman and Colin Klein calling the shots. Like, I see a new A&M. However, there's too much newness to me from the top down for A&M to be picked to win this game, even with it being at home. I'm going to take Notre Dame to win a close one in a dogfight in the opener for year 3 of the Marcus Freeman era. 27-24, Irish get it done. Again, that's going to be, I think we got a lot of classics on deck now. A lot of classics on deck for this weekend. Like, it's going to be just hit after hit after hit, and I cannot wait. Golly, just talking actual college football again feels good. Talking actual scheme and strategy and matchups, doesn't that just feel good? Aren't you so tired of hearing, well, this person could very well be the end-all, be-all for why they win the conference? Like, we'll get to those talks when they get here. We'll still do stuff like that on this show. But to talk matchups and to talk actual games being played, like, golly, just makes you feel good inside. So I said we got hit after hit after hit this weekend. They do not stop on Saturday. It's one of the beautiful parts about week 1 of the college football season. Sunday, typically reserved for the NFL, not this weekend. Sunday, September 1st, 7:30 Eastern, ABC. In Las Vegas, you got LSU favored by 4.5 against USC. Y'all, let's be real. It's week 1. I get it. It's the expanded playoff era. But this game, to me, by what it means for both teams, should have a very real playoff vibe to it. Because Brian Kelly went on the Paul Feinbaum show, I believe it was yesterday. He said, look, man, like, we're going to, I'm paraphrasing here, but he essentially was like, we are here to win the national championship. And he's not the only one that said that. Will Campbell said that a few weeks ago. He's like, you win 9-10 games, that gets people fired. I don't think he's talking about his head coach, but I think he's speaking to the idea and the standard internally at LSU that, like, hey, we're not here to win a New Year's Six bowl to just make the playoff and feel good about ourselves. We are here to win a national championship. For LSU, if you want to win a national championship, you got to, I think, reassert where you are in the college football landscape in 2024. To do that, I think you got to beat a team in USC who is, in a lot of people's mind, kind of sneaky going into this year. A lot of headlines around you lost Caleb Williams and the defense is this, that, and the other. I'm just saying now, USC, new defensive coordinator. Miller Moss showed out in that bowl game. We'll see what they are, but I would be very slow to just dismiss what USC is going to be. A win for LSU, by nature of what their path is ahead of them, that'd be massive. Now for USC, speaking of like narratives and what they want to accomplish, if you want to change the narrative around a Lincoln Riley coached football team, go beat a team in the SEC. Because what have we said about USC? And when I say we, I'm speaking more to like the college football public. People see Lincoln Riley and they say, oh, that's a soft West Coast football team. They see those defenses he's had in the past couple of seasons. They're like, why would we think they're going to be a threat in the Big Ten Conference? The Big Ten is a line of scrimmage league. Y'all are going to get hung out to dry against these physical football teams up front. Well, again, it's a new era. It's a new age. Danton Lynn now coming to call the defense, new defensive staff. Lincoln Riley just keeps reemphasizing, hey, this is a new approach for us, a new philosophy for us defensively. We'll see if that's the case or not. But if you want to make a statement, if you want to change the narrative, like I said, beat a team in the SEC, do it on national TV when you're the only game on. Everybody and their mama, anyone who even kind of likes college football, will turn this game on and form their opinion on USC. And I can't wait to see it. Now, I think in this one, we're in for a quarterback duel. We'll talk more about the defenses here in a second, but like Miller Moss and Garrett Nussmeier, I got a lot of respect for both those dudes just purely for the fact that they have waited their turn to be the guy at their respective schools. Miller Moss sat behind Caleb Williams, Heisman winner. Garrett Nussmeier sat behind Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner. So just because you didn't start over a Heisman winning quarterback, I don't think that you should, just write off either of these cats. The question I have in this game for them is like, who is more poised overall? And that looks like a lot of things. One is who's able to hit the open shot when it's there. Because as much as these defenses, I believe, will be improved, I think there's still going to be some big plays to be had in this football game. Their first year under new staffs for both defenses. Whenever you see someone open downfield and that safety's in the wrong spot or whatever it ends up looking like, it's very natural for your heart rate to elevate, your eyes get big, palms get sweaty. Shout out to Marshall Mathers. And you just overcompensate. You change your shot with the game on the line, to quote Matt Rule. If you're poised and you're able to trust yourself and your execution and your training and all those things, you're able to then capitalize and be able to make the big play happen. Band's fired up. Good things are going on. Poise, I think, also looks like not making the crucial mistake and not giving the opposing offense more bullets to work with. Because as much as we talk about, these are new quarterbacks and there's some new production around both of them have to, I believe, replace right around 50% production on the LSU and USC offense. I don't think anybody's questioning if they're going to be able to score points. Like, you don't want to spot anybody possessions in this football game. So poise, obviously, a huge part of this. Something that might not be so evident as we watch this game, but something that we could, I think, get a better gauge for after the fact in this game. Which quarterback is poised enough to handle a bigger game plan? Because with two new defensive staffs, it's pretty fair to assume that there might be an acclimation period for the defense. Like, they may not be in midseason form when it comes to alignment and assignment and all those things. And so the more looks you can give a defense, the more you can confuse them and cause them to short circuit. That means your quarterback has to handle more of that. Your quarterback has to have more on his plate to put more pressure on the defense. Kind of a chess game, again, something we may not be able to see exactly from an X's and O's perspective in real time. Just keep an eye on that, though, because both these dudes now been in their respective systems now for a couple of years. I understand that Garrett Nussmeier's got a new play caller, but I think the offense will have a similar flavor overall. Remains to be seen. How do they handle that? That's huge. Now, in that same vein, which of these quarterbacks in a quarterback duel is getting more help? That looks like the run game, obviously. That looks like your receivers making plays for you, especially in the red zone. That's huge. Maybe just as important is who gets more stops to work with. Because if you tell me, like, as a quarterback, I'm going out there and I'm Miller Moss, and it's like, hey, man, we might have to score 40 much like last year if we want to win this football game. Like, what mind space does that put you in as a quarterback? Same thing for Garrett Nussmeier. Hey, we got to get 7 here, otherwise we may not be winning this football game. It causes you to press. It causes you to maybe make some decisions you wouldn't have made. You maybe try to scramble and throw the ball back across your body when instead you probably would have been better just throwing the football away and risk a turnover. Like, that's kind of the situation I can see ourselves in this game. So overall, like, who provides more margin for their quarterback to work with to actually operate the offense? So speaking of margin now, speaking of the defense, we said this during our early preview. I want to say it again. Which of these teams structurally, just like pre-snap alignment and overall execution, looks better? And that sounds like a really straightforward question, but y'all, the reason why I'm asking that is because both these individual units defensively for LSU and USC allowed 6 yards of play. 6 yards of play. I don't think either outfit recruits poorly enough to allow 6 yards of play. So the point I'm trying to make here is I think last year schematically, neither side was actually equipping their defenses to be able to have their talent maximized. Does that change this year? Does that change in this game? Remains to be seen. I think when you talk about the need for improvement for LSU in this game, it's got to be in the secondary. Has to be in the secondary. They allowed 8.1 yards a pass last year. Now the run game needs some help too. There's no way around that. But the reason why I'd love to see them step up in the secondary and have a little bit more of a something to work with for Miller Moss in this game, it allows you the chance to at least maximize Harold Perkins. Just give him the chance to go hunt the quarterback. Because he's rocking that number 7, and y'all, I watched the hype video where they give him the number 7. It has me believing in the LSU defense again, just full transparency. Like that kind of got the juices flowing for what I think he could be in 2024, not just because of the number, but I think we all forget how good he actually is. Like last year, they didn't really cut him loose and allow him to do what he does best. I think Blake Baker and how they operate defensively, again, will be much more aggressive, much more work coming after you. You better lock in and buckle your chin strap because Harold Perkins, now number 7, is going to try and eat your lunch. He doesn't get to do that if the secondary isn't on their P's and Q's. At that point, Miller Moss taking a 3-step drop, getting rid of the football before Harold Perkins can even get to him. So the secondary improving in this game allows your best player on defense a chance to impact the game in the most impactful way possible, which is, of course, getting strip sacks, wreaking havoc, at the very least creating 3rd and long, which would also be huge. Now for USC, I'm going to go the other way. I think improvement in the run game would be huge. Again, both the pass and the rush defense would be hopefully improved throughout the course of the season. But in this game specifically, they allowed 4.8 yards a carry last year, not winning football clearly. I want to see if they're able to put pressure on Joe Sloan, the new play caller in Baton Rouge. Because we talk a lot about the new quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, and again, that's something they're going to have to deal with. But like Joe Sloan now, it's going to be his first time more or less kind of running the show with this offense. You don't think maybe that you want to put him in a situation where he has to decide on the right play for 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7? Just put him in a place to where they can't just pound the rock and run the football at you. Make him make some tough decisions. Make him show off his prowess as a coordinator. And obviously, coupled in with that, Garrett Nussmeier as a passer. So overall, man, like if you're USC, feed Zachariah Branch. Feed Zachariah Branch. Like last year, I don't know if they did that nearly enough. He is one of the most electric players in college football. I think the way that Miller Moss plays within the structure of this offense compared to what Caleb Williams did last year will allow for Zachariah Branch to flourish more in this system. That's not knocking Caleb Williams. I just think you're going to see, quite frankly, a Miller Moss-centric kind of offense. And the Miller Moss-centric kind of offense is going to be within the confines of what Lincoln Riley wants to do. Miller Moss is not going to be out there running left, throwing right, scrambling, reversing field. Like, he's not the athlete Caleb Williams is. And that's okay because we have seen many times a Lincoln Riley coached quarterback playing within his system usually yields some pretty solid results. Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Not saying that Mayfield and Murray and Hurts didn't all have their own sort of ad-lib ability to them, but I'm just saying if you trust the script, if you play the role that you're being dealt here by Lincoln Riley as the quarterback, good things happen. Good things happen. And honestly, in this game, that could be the path to victory for USC. We could see Miller Moss have ice in his veins, feel very comfortable in the system, run it to perfection. The LSU defense is still playing catch-up potentially, and like that could be the way this thing goes. USC ends up winning the football game, and we're all like, wow, okay. Lincoln Riley and co. going to be a force in the Big Ten. Now, here's my other thought on this, though. The LSU defense, we've admitted here, like, they may not be perfect. Both defenses are a work in progress. There's a reason why there's new staffs in town, all right? But I think for LSU, as much as they won't be perfect, I think they're going to be a lot like those insurance commercials where they create mayhem. Like, they may not be 110% sound every single snap, but Blake Baker is going to allow his defense to be aggressive. And I think with what they have in-house and the continuity they have from last year with 70% production back, to be able to build off the chemistry they had last year and to have, again, I think one of the freakiest players on the defensive side of the football and all of college football, I think that matters, and I think that's going to have an impact on this game. So, again, it may not be a situation where LSU holds USC to 20-some-odd points. But I think it'll be a situation where Harold Perkins ends up getting a havoc kind of play. It's a strip sack. It's a forced fumble. It's a recovered fumble. Whatever it is, I think Harold Perkins is able to shine in a game like this. And I also think for Garrett Nussmeier, man, the amount of weapons that he has around him. Kyron Lacey waited his turn, much like Garrett Nussmeier. Big-time wide receiver for them. He's going to have a massive year this year. C.J. Daniels, transfer receiver from Liberty, over 1,000 yards last year. Mason Taylor, the tight end. Like, they've got a lot of weapons now, I think, to where it's going to be very difficult for USC to account for all of them. And then also we talk about poise like we talked to Garrett Nussmeier at SEC Media Days. That dude's built different. Like, he's ready for this moment. He is. Competitively, just by talking to him, it's hard to exactly put it into words super articulately, but I just think he's made of the right stuff. I don't think he's going to shy away in this moment, not speaking anything of Miller Moss, but I just think Garrett Nussmeier will come out swinging, will be aggressive. I think that'll be the LSU team overall. I think this is a real good game. I'm actually going to take USC to cover, but I have LSU winning in a game that goes LSU 34, USC 30. So keep an eye on that over total and where it ends up hitting. But right now, LSU 34, USC 30. So again, we'll take USC to cover and LSU to win the football game in Vegas. Just so we're on the same page, too, I think that if you're a USC fan, you leave this game and you're like, all right, defense still has some work to do. But, like, if LSU's talked about as a college football playoff team, if they're in that discussion, we're going to be okay in the Big Ten. And if you're LSU, you're like, we got a quarterback. Let's roll. Let's go get it. So here's one more I want to circle back to from the weekend, because I think it's just a little bit sneaky, and that's Penn State favored by 8.5. Going to Morgantown, West Virginia, taking the country roads all the way down there to Big 12 country. Noon Eastern, it's on Fox. Joe Klatt, one of the best in the business, and Gus Johnson on the call. This fires me up, man. This is one of those games to where if it wasn't week one, you'd probably circle and probably would have a lot more volume around it. I think you should still circle it just so we're on the same page. West Virginia, man, they feel disrespected. They feel very disrespected. Home dog? You kidding me? At your place? No top 100 players like Neil Brown was talking about? They won 5 of their last 6 last year. And it's not like they're hitting the reset button on the roster either. 70% of the production from last year's squad is back. Like, they're ready to roll, baby. They welcome Penn State to their crib this time because they went to Happy Valley last year. And it was a close game, which we'll talk about more later. But, like, the final score did not reflect how close that game was. They took the L. Promise you they remember that. Now, for Penn State, this is your window year, you know? Like, this is the year to where even when it was a 4-team playoff, you had this year circled as the year to where, okay, this is the year we make some noise. Because Drew Aller now has a year of starting experience. Abdul Carter has proven what he is. I think you have one of the best running back rooms in all of college football in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. They're trying to recreate kind of what they did their freshman year. This is the year now. And if it's not this year with the schedule that you have, there's some part of you that, as a Penn State fan, whether it's right or wrong, you're like, okay, well, hey, when's this going to happen if it's not this year? 12-team playoff. Ohio State's the only one that looks like a real tough test for us from a roster talent perspective. This is the year if you're Penn State. So my question now as we go into this game, how clunky or not clunky is the new OC and DC combo for Penn State? Because Coach Koltanecki, the new OC for Penn State, I think that he was a great hire. I love what he brings to the table. But it's also your first game in a very difficult, very under-the-radar difficult environment to play in Morgantown. Tom Allen, the new DC for Penn State, tons of ability for them. Tons of ability. I don't think you're ever questioning how much they have on that side of the football, but still, is there some acclamation? Is there some MAs? Is there some issues? MA stands for missed assignments, for those of y'all that don't know. What does that look like? Because in a spot like this, your offensive issues, I believe, if you're not totally like solidified and good to go going into this game, the issues and the places you don't feel good about as an offense become amplified and more visible on the road. Just the facts. For the defense, those become amplified when you play an experienced offense. And that's exactly what West Virginia has now. 3 of their 5 O-line starters from last year are back. 7 starters overall are back offensively from last year. Mobile quarterback in Garrett Green. If you have any issues, any weak spots in your armor overall, like that is going to be what you look to and say, that's the guy that can expose it. Because if there's any issues defensively, a mobile quarterback will make you pay. Now, my question for this game now, like it's no secret, the talent for Penn State, not to knock West Virginia, is superior. It is. Now, how visible is that? And what's the talent gap overall in the trenches? Because last year, man, Penn State ran for 4 yards a carry in this game. 4 yards a carry. If that's the case again, Penn State's going to roll, and I promise you they'll cover that number if they run for 4 yards a carry again. If you're West Virginia, you got to bow up front. You have to. Because we talk so much about the atmosphere that you're working with in this game that's at your back. You want to go ahead and lose that? You want to find a way to turn that volume off? Allow 4 yards a carry. Allow Nick Singleton to rip off a massive gain to start the first quarter or the second half. Like, it's a total buzzkill. Can't allow that to happen if you're West Virginia. And for Penn State now, if you get that going, we talk about their lack of explosivity and what they haven't had over the course of the last season, really, and why you brought a new OC. You can bring those safeties down, and you can allow some more real estate on the back end. Drew Aller, put some respect on his name, and he'll make you pay. He will, I promise you. He is a more than capable quarterback to propel this offense to where I think they're capable of going. The question I have is, well, what weapons do they have for him to work with? Because Keandre Lambert-Smith hit the portal. He's at Auburn. In this game a season ago, he was good for 2 touchdowns and over 120 yards, I believe. Like, he was your stick of dynamite. He was why the offense had so much success last year in my mind. Again, he's gone. You have to replenish that production. You want to replenish it? Well, you got to run the football and kind of create some imbalance. Now, we look at last year's game, and you see that final score. Penn State scored 38. I believe West Virginia only had 15. Yo, it was 14-7 in the third quarter. Like, this was not a game that Penn State had just ran away with in the first half, and we're just playing the second and third stringers. Like, this was a real deal dogfight throughout this game. I'm very concerned about Penn State's explosion opportunities here. Because with it being on the road, again, that adds a whole other element, a whole other variable you have to factor in now. And for Drew Aller now, we saw him play against Ohio State last year in person. That was, I think, the most difficult environment he's ever had to play in. This is going to be, I believe, right on par with that, if not more so. That's not knocking Columbus or the shoe or anything. I'm just saying for this squad now and the home opener, with the disrespect they feel like they're getting right now, like that's going to, I believe, cause some very real problems. This is one of those games, too, where we did our TikTok schedule predictions, right? You do the win-loss, 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 and we had Penn State winning this game. As we look closer at it, and as we have week 0 go past us and we see what Georgia Tech and Florida State did to each other and how Georgia Tech won that football game, I keep looking at all the ingredients here for West Virginia. And there's so much there that makes me feel like they have a real good chance to win this game. Again, new coordinators for Penn State. An offense that has some question marks that lost their explosive weapon in this game last year in Penn State. Mobile quarterback for West Virginia and Garrett Green ran for 13 touchdowns last year. Over 700 yards. That's going to be a weapon for them. I'm curious how they treat the defensive front of Penn State. Because Abdul Carter, making that, I don't know if transition is the right word, but he's going to be playing a lot more defensive end/edge position for Penn State this year. I almost like that for West Virginia because at that point, you don't have to block him. You can just read him. And how much they read Abdul Carter could have a very large say into their offensive production and success this season, or this game at least, rather. And I'm sure the run back or the quarterback run game will be a factor in their approach this season as well. I think West Virginia feels very disrespected. I have questions about Penn State. It feels a bit on the nose. But y'all, the way this is kind of where we get down to the prediction part of this thing. Like, some of this, for right or wrong, is just about gut feeling. And I've had many gut feelings that have been wrong. But if you don't go with your gut, I don't know how you sleep with yourself at night. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and pick West Virginia in an absolute dogfight, in a game they will write stories about and sing songs about for years to come. Wins in walk-off field goal fashion. The Mountaineers win 24-22. This is my week 1 upset special. We're taking WVU and the Fighting Neil Browns, baby, to get it done. And this is one now. Again, we're trusting our gut. We're rolling with it. Does it make sense on paper? No. But that's the beautiful part about college football, man. It doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always fit all the little criteria you have for yourself. But when the dust settles on Saturday, you call your shot, they play the game, and weird things happen. So, again, we got WVU winning that football game. I'm so fired up, man. I could not be more fired up to start this college football season with y'all, man. It's special. It's so, so special. The fact that y'all take time out of your day to consume college football content, and you choose this show, man, we are so grateful for it. We're so thankful for it. It's not something we take for granted for a second. Okay, I personally used to do an office job and would listen to college football podcasts on retweet to get through the office job. So the fact that we get to do this now for a job, and that y'all are a part of this college football sicko program that we have here, means everything, man. Means everything. So let's have the greatest college football season in history. Let's have an absolute electric week 1. Follow me on the socials, Instagram and Twitter, @JDPikel. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, and we're going to get after it, man. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. For Nick Brake producing the show, for myself, JD Pikel, we're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.